So once again, core PCE inflation rose 2.8% annually in February, as expected, but that index excludes food and energy, and oil and gas prices are up significantly over the past month. Also, personal income missed expectations. So is this why Americans take such a dim view of the economy? Joining me now is Michael Faulkender, former Assistant Treasury Secretary for Economic Policy, Chief Economist at the American First Policy Institute, and economics professor at the University of Maryland. You got your whole resume in there, Michael. Good to see you, my friend. So look at the polls. We can put some polls up about how Americans feel about the economy, and it's not good. They don't like Bidenomics. They think it has failed. Are they right?
They are right, David, because if you look at how far American household budgets are going these days compared to what it was like just 4 years ago, they're seeing that they're working harder than ever, and yet they're not getting anywhere near where they were getting before. And that's because while we've seen inflation come down, it's not as if prices have gone down. The price level is still rather elevated compared to where it was just 3 years ago, such that prices are about 18% higher than they were. And what's so disturbing about the most recent report that came out today is that for yet another month, personal income went up less than inflation. And so once you inflation adjust, households are further falling behind. And that means they're putting more on credit and they're digging deeper into their savings accounts, and that's why they're discouraged, David, because they're seeing that they're not getting ahead.
There's that old Obama index. This is probably the only time I've credited an Obama index, but he came out with one saying, look, people vote based on how much it costs to fill up their gas tank, and it's costing more. I mean, you look at the prices a month ago. I think we're up about 40 cents in the past month and a half now. Well, there we go. It's not up that much compared with a month ago, but still, you know, $3.30 compared to $3.50 is significant for them.
That's right, David. And a lot of that is coming from the fact that while oil and gas production is finally back up, refining capacity is not.
Bingo.
So there hasn't been any net increase in the ability of U.S. refineries to turn oil into the gas that we all put into our cars. And that's, of course, because, as you saw with the Biden administration today, they came out with a rule that's now going to make it more expensive to ship things over using trucks because they want everything to move to electric vehicles. And so when you have policies that are moving you away from internal combustion engine transportation to electric vehicles, there's no reason for oil and gas companies to increase refining capacity. And of course, that's going to drive up gas prices.
They're trying to kill gas-powered cars by regulation, right? Isn't it that simple?
It really is that simple. Whether it's what we call CAFE requirements, the corporate average fuel efficiency, or it's tailpipe emissions policy that just came out, or the one that came out today about trucking, all of this is forcing Americans into cars they don't want, which is away from reliable internal combustion engine cars that they've been using for decades towards electric vehicles that may not be able to be charged, that see batteries run out, especially in cold weather, and that aren't going to give them the amount of miles that they can drive per fuel up as they can get in their current
vehicle. And by the way,
vehicle.
that costs a fortune if you're trying to fix them up, and that's why insurance rates are up right now. Let's talk about inflation generally, though, because you look at the price of gold, which is going sky high, and Bitcoin, which is also kind of a play against the dollar. There do seem to be some worrying signs about core inflation, as the Fed would call it.
That's right, David. So if you look at both of them, they're at all-time highs. And usually we think about that as concerns about underlying inflation, right? Because if you've got concerns that the money supply is going to keep increasing, because, again, another big part of the Biden administration's approach is to run massive budget deficits. Well, how much is that going to have to be monetized by the Fed? What is the pressure going to be on the money supply? And does that create underlying inflation that people are hedging through things like gold and Bitcoin?
And Michael, of course, the Biden administration continues to blame the explosive deficits, their phrase, on the tax cuts. But the income from tax revenue has increased 48% since the tax cuts kicked in. So you just can't make that up. It doesn't work. Tax revenue has increased about 50% now. So what's causing the explosive deficits is clearly spending.
That's right, David. If you look at fiscal year 2022, so the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act was fully in place. We had returned from the pandemic. We saw the second highest level of revenues to the federal government as a percentage of national output since World War II. So it's completely false to say that the tax environment of the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act is not going to bring in enough revenue if indeed it's the second highest since World War II. The problem that we've got is massive growth in government spending. You look at the fact that we're at 24% of national output in spending.
Michael Faulkender, always a pleasure to talk to you, my friend. Thank